is a pretty intimidating scene here. We are talking hundreds, at least 300 U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers, all wearing riot helmets, some with riot shields. And in the green, we're not sure if they are military. We saw MP on their uniforms because we've been told that there are military troops down here, but can't confirm that. But in the dark is Customs and Border Protection. They are essentially shutting down the border, and there are literally hundreds of officers, every single one with riot helmets, riot shields, some carrying very intimidating-looking rifles, and so forth. But this comes at the confluence of several events. The Pentagon announced yesterday they'll be sending more U.S. troops to the southern border, and then you have this. Take a look. 10,000 Central American migrants making their way to the U.S. These three things, this operational exercise going on right now, the sending of the military troops, and also the 10,000 migrants coming to America raises this question, which we posed to local immigration attorney Esther Valdez. In your opinion, should the public be concerned?
Well, it is of concern for us who are San Diego natives, longtime residents. We've never seen the militarization of our border here. We like to think that Tijuana, their neighbors, are friendly. But something interesting happened today. There was a publication in the Union Tribune said that Tijuana is one of the deadliest cities in the world.
The murder rate has been out of control.
It's out of control, and they can't scale it down. And it's not just the transport of drugs to the U.S., it's the drug use and it's the drug wars by the cartels themselves within the Tijuana.
Now, back here live once again, if you're just tuning in, this is a readiness exercise being conducted at the Otay Mesa port of entry involving hundreds and hundreds of very heavily armed officers, every single one wearing riot helmets, many donning riot shields. And now you see some lesser armed officers moving in here, but they're shutting down the border. This is supposed to last 15 minutes, and nobody's talking to us. I think that's very important to point out. They sent in a press release. It was pretty vague. They offered no point of contact. Nobody from the federal government is talking to us about this, which could be concerning. What is this in preparation for? Is there something that they fear is going to happen? Is this related to the president threatening to shut the border down with the emergency order? You heard the attorney talk about the comparison to Tale of Two Cities, Tijuana with 2,500 murders last year compared to San Diego, I think with maybe around 50, and fears that that could spread across our border. We don't know, but it's very important to point out that nobody from the federal government is talking to us. Nobody has, on the press release, there was no contact. And it's also interesting to note that they're letting us videotape this. One of the officers said, "You're good to go." Didn't show it. So apparently this is a scenario that the federal government wants the public to see.
I couldn't agree with you more. Just seeing this image, the images of all of these possibly military members. Can you hear us? Hear us, guys? One sec.
They're setting off flares now.
Okay.
Okay. But this is gaining a little bit more. Okay, you can see tear. It looks like that is possibly tear gas. I can't say for sure, but that looks like that's what that is. You can see the big plume of smoke here. Once again, if you're just tuning in, this is a readiness drill at the Otay Mesa border. Nobody from the federal government is telling us, what's the purpose is, other than to just, to be ready. Holy cow! Did you hear that? That was pretty darn loud.
Yeah, you
I don't know. They are, I assume, concussion grenades, I believe, but that was really loud. Setting off car alarms.
You said nobody's talking to you, but in so many ways, action is speaking louder than words. If they are going through a drill like this, you know what they are preparing for.
Yeah, they're pretty much setting the stage, you would think, or at least one would tend to believe, for declaring a national emergency at some point, especially with the migrants, the caravans of migrants heading this way. We don't know for sure that that's the case, but if Congress doesn't reach some sort of conclusion on a border wall, then President Trump surely has some visual pictures here, and then when the migrants or other migrants arrive at the border in Tijuana, then Obviously, there'll be more. Question is, what's it doing to traffic on both sides of the border right now for people who need to get across, who live in Tijuana and work in San Diego?
Oh, you know it's going to be backed up because I've been down there covering these stories.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is not a new issue. This has been something that we have been seeing. In fact, the weekend, a couple of months ago, when they did shut down the border and the sirens were going off.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is they're wanting to avoid that kind of pandemonium. They want to be concise. They want to have a clear objective, and clearly they're practicing for that.
The question to me is,
now.
what kind of visual image does it send back to Washington, D.C., to the negotiators on both sides of the fence, Republicans and Democrats, who are now trying to work out some sort of a compromise on border security?
And what kind of a visual does it send back to all of these asylum seekers, all of these migrants who they basically know come to America because our borders are loose, they're free, they're open, and you can just wait out the asylum process, whatever the case may be. We've heard so much sound.
Without a doubt, it shows that President Trump means business on this, because this is the second one that we know of, at least, the exercise that he has ordered to be conducted, and this one, just kind of came about, and obviously no word, no heads up, so to speak, other than just, hey, we're going to do an exercise down there, that it would be to this extent.
Right, but they're also not turning our cameras away.
Right.
So that's why I think it really does send a loud message.
Sends a message
to Washington, D.C., but also to Mexico and to the neighboring countries who are who we see these different caravans that are seemingly unending at this point. I think he said 10,000.
Yeah, this thing starts. 10,000 right now is the last word we had. Of course, that number could increase or decrease as they get closer to Tijuana. But this started at 6 o'clock. The exercise did. It's supposed to last for about 15 minutes. We're at about 6:07, 6:08, depending, somewhere around there. So we'll see if it actually is over by 6:15, as we were told that it would be. But right now, everybody's standing firm and in place as an exercise drill. That's what this is. This is not the real thing, so to speak, to try to head off anyone. This is just a drill by the U.S. military and Border Patrol, combination of other law enforcement agencies. Yeah,
so far we've seen everybody move in progression, and then I think what took us off guard, well, first of all, potentially that was the tear gas, but then it seemed like there were some flashbangs that also got thrown in there. You can see the gear. These military members are in full riot gear. They've got the riot gear in front of them, and there's several layers of men and women there. So this is a full-scale operation.
It's a pretty awesome sight when you see this, and also it's got to be hitting home for all those people who are stuck in traffic there at the border and who are up close and they see this. And they think, oh, my goodness, well, if this does actually come to fruition and these migrants, caravans make it to the border, how are we going to get back across to do our jobs here in San Diego that work for so many different varieties of tourism industry and what have you, of jobs? There's
so much mutual business back and forth. Again, it's just a steady flow of people all day long. And then when you see something like this, knowing that shutting down the border, this isn't something the president is just floating out there anymore.
In fact, I talked to some people today who were coming across the border about an hour ago, and they were, they live in Tijuana, they work over here, and they were heading back probably right about now. And I don't know that they knew that this was going to happen, so they're going to be sitting in quite a bit of traffic for a long time.
And sometimes it can take up to 4 hours to get across the border.
Well, it took them I think about an hour and a half, and they left at 4 o'clock.
Wow.
These individuals did, and so and that was before all this came down.
Wow. This is incredible. John, can you hear us? I know this is live TV and there's a lot of action going on there, but you have the backup of people right there. What's the sense from those folks as they are watching this with us?
You know what? They look somewhat stunned. They're not talking, they're just watching. And the picture kind of tells a story, especially when those grenades were set off. That shocked yours truly, too. I was in the Marine Corps, so it kind of was like a little bit of a flash kick. And also, I want to mention that they were doing some kind of military type of chants in unison, like you would hear in the Marine Corps, So this was a show of intimidation and force, and they're not messing around.
John, there was no indication too that that they were going to set off any kind of smoke bombs or any kind of that went off just a few minutes ago. Any kind of detective devices that went off.
I don't know whether that was actual tear gas, but you saw the smoke. There was a lot of smoke. But those flashbangs, man, that'll get your attention. And as I said, they did not mention in any way what to expect in the news release. It was very vague. It just said that the role of this federal agency is to make sure terrorists and terrorist weapons don't come into the country. So, maybe they don't need anybody to talk to the media. Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah, and certainly with social media, because as you were panning back, showing the people that are backlogged, you saw so many people with their phones, like everybody this day and age. You know this is going right there. You know this is going to be all over social media. So, yeah, you're right. They don't need to talk to the media because the word just gets out.
John, one quick question. From where you're standing, your vantage point, can you see how many U.S. military, law enforcement, what have you, Border Patrol, what kind of numbers are you seeing, and is this over? We see the individuals, especially those in the dark uniforms, walking back to the right of our screen, carrying shields. Is this about to conclude? Have they done what they wanted to do and set out to do?
Yeah, they're going back to their positions. As far as the number, I would say, close to 500. The thing that we don't know is these camouflaged men and women. We don't know whether they're members of the Marine Corps. We did say military police, but we're not sure if in fact that's the case. But they are fully in military fatigues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can see the American flag. You can see the MP there. It certainly does look like they are, in some fashion, service members, most likely Marines. So if you are just joining us right now, just so you know what is happening, we were given a notice fairly quickly that there was going to be a 15-minute exercise where they were going to be shutting down the border and doing exactly what you see here. We have, seems like military members, also a lot of officials in full riot gear.
What we've heard is Army, Marines, National Guard, and obviously Border Patrol are all making up this group of individuals who are on the border, somewhere maybe close to 500 from John's vantage point, at least what he thought maybe, who are down on the border now, putting up a blockade as an exercise, strictly an exercise. This is not anything more than that, just a show of force.
They're certainly going through the exercise, but the border is shut down for 15 minutes, so you know it is going to get backlogged.
It's going to get crazy.
We've seen some of the folks already over there, and it just, again, it gives you that heightened sense of awareness that things are changing. There is definitely something on the horizon, whether it's going to be the president declaring a national emergency. There's more caravans coming. And as you're looking at right now, those are all the folks that are trying to get over.
They're frozen in place, looking at this in awe of what is happening at the border right now. And it's got to be going through their mind, if the real thing, if it comes to this, and migrants try to rush, illegal migrants try to rush the border, then the United States is prepared.
Right.
That's,
well, and we've already seen
sent.
that happen. In fact, 1 week and a few months ago, and our own Liz Alvarez was down there, and she described
in large
it.
numbers,
Certainly, crashing the border. They even said they were going to do it the next day, that they were going to crash the border once again. And the way she described the scenes with the loud sirens, the loud announcements that the border was closing, clearly they are practicing for that to happen. John Soderman is down there live, and he's describing these folks right here as stunned, especially as the flashbangs went off. Looks like they have just reopened, so they were almost on the money, maybe 30 seconds early. They said it was going to be shut down for 15 minutes, and as you can see right now, they're allowing those folks to once again cross over the border.
And now we're panning the camera back, and we're seeing obviously people starting to go through on their motorcycles, now going back across the border. So there we have it, a 15-minute drill conducted by various elements of the United States military. Shutting the border down for an exercise.
With what appeared to be some tear gas. I'm sure it was some just sort of smoke bombs and also some flashbangs. Again, just an exercise to see the what-if scenario, because it seems like that's something they need to be.
John Soderman down on the border covering for us, and of course, if anything else happens down there, he'll bring it to us.